everyone, it's Miss Dennison. This is the last video that I will be recording before I get back in person, and I cannot wait. The closer it gets to Monday, the more excited I get just thinking about the fact that we haven't all been in the classroom together since March. So it's as much as I love being home with my boys, I'm very much looking forward to coming back. So what we're going to do today is continue on. Guys, I'm just going to go ahead and apologize now. It's my last week, and so the baby's kind of kicking my butt. We're going to continue on with the monologues. And so we've been talking a lot about objectives. Well, now we're going to talk about not only how the tactics we're going to use to complete said objectives. We're also going to talk about the different obstacles that may, come to fruition while we're trying to make an objective happen. So please get your notes out because there are some things on there that are going to be covered in today's lesson and it should complete your worksheet. And then there's some new items that I decided to add in because I thought it was information you really needed. So guys, let's get started. All right, so even though these concepts of objectives and obstacles and tactics, even though that is somewhat new, I know that this probably isn't new for like my some of my theater production kids as well as some of my advanced theater kids, because we talked a lot about this with A Raisin in the Sun. But even though these terms aren't totally familiar with you, in your day-to-day vernacular, objectives are something that you always have, right? Your objective right now is probably to take a nap. But you have obstacles in the way of making that nap happen, right? The fact that I'm sitting here talking to you, listening to this video, you probably just came back from lunch or you're about to eat lunch. And so, those things are getting in the way of how sleepy you are and how you just want to take a nap. My voice is currently being an obstacle for those sleepy people. And so you come up with different tactics so that you can still take a nap. So whether that's just completely not participate in today's class, yes, you're completing your goal. There are consequences for completing said goal, but you completed your obstacle. So we also see this all over social media. We see it obviously in the news. Our day-to-day lives when we're talking to friends and family. So it's important to know what your objectives and obstacles are and the tactics that you're going to use as your character so that whenever you are acting, you are also reacting appropriately to the different situations that your character will be facing. Okay, so remember, an objective is the goal intended to be attained. It's your job to find out what it is your character wants. And using the following statements, it'll help you solidify that. We talked about this the first day. I want this, right? I need this, or I must have this. Okay, we really talked about I want and I need, but I must have is an option as well. So the example that I'm going to provide for you today is my objective is I want to eat dessert before my dinner. That's a gimme. That's the story of my life. So there you have it. I want to eat dessert before my dinner. Now let's see how we can add to that. Notice too how short and precise that sentence is, and as far as an objective goes, it is straight to the point. I want to eat dinner before, or I want to eat dessert before dinner, right? So now we're going to add another layer to that and add an obstacle. What is getting in the way of making that objective come to fruition? Okay, so possible obstacle would be My mom won't let me have dessert until I've eaten my dinner. Okay? Now, is the obstacle always going to be clear? Well, when you're looking at a monologue, sometimes that's the case. If you're pulling a monologue from like a script, you really need to read the rest of the script from where you've cut out the monologue. You need to look at some context outside of the monologue to help you determine what is the obstacle. Because I promise you, there is an obstacle into getting whatever it is that you want, right? Into getting your objective. So you need to do a little digging. But these monologues, especially the ones that I provided for you guys on Teams, those usually tell you what the problem is, and it's up to you to come up with the tactics. Okay, so we've got our objective, we've got the obstacle. So in order to eliminate the obstacle, we need to come up with some tactics. So the tactics are the methods that the character uses to achieve their objective, right? So how are we going to make it happen? How am I going to eliminate the problem and eat dessert before dinner? A good tactic is an active verb, right? It requires an action. It needs to require an action. We talked about. Okay, so like I said, just to continue on, tactics are an action or strategy carefully planned to achieve a specific end. That's another way to define it. So the objective was, using our example, was I want to eat dessert before dinner. And then the obstacle was that mom won't let me eat dessert until after dinner, right? I'm wording it wrong, but you understand what the problem is. So now let's look at different tactics we could use. Tactic number one could be I try to give my food to my dog, right? So the tactic right there, even that's a little bit weaker, but I try, okay? I try to hide food in my napkin, okay? I sneak food onto my sister's plate, right? The action verb there is sneak. I sneak bites of the dessert when my mom isn't looking. And so that is also an active verb. Notice that it goes from this I actually would consider this one here to be the easiest, and then this one, and then this one followed or last with that, so it kind of goes at a sort of scale to give you an idea of good, better, even better, best. So definitely try to come up with 3 or 4 tactics so that it can give your character's actions way more depth in the scene. So this is just an example of some action verbs to help you sort of navigate your sentence structure whenever you apply this to your monologue next week. But you can see on here that, to sneak was an option, right? What are some others that we can include with our example about wanting to eat dessert before dinner? You could beg your mom. You could attack your mom, even though I don't recommend that. You could destroy your mom, even though that's not a way to go. You can distract your mom. That would be clever. Nice physical action I could see with that. You could pester your mom. You could ridicule your mom, but you would be grounded forever, right? At least I know I would. And then, so there's even more tactics that you see here. You just got to look at it whenever you're trying to decide which tactics you're going to use or add to your list. what the best course of action is, what's going to make the most interesting character choices for your monologue. So like I said before, in a scene or a monologue, there are often clear moments when a character needs to switch tactics in order to get what they want in the situation. So these switches in dynamic are called beats or beat changes. So it usually means when the emotion, tone, or feeling of the scene changes. Maybe the monologue starts out where he is really, really funny and then he gets serious, or maybe she is really upset but then uses a comedic line to sort of break the tension a little bit. As you're reading the text, you should be able to naturally sort of see where these beat changes could take place. So if we were to define it, beat would be an added pause to a line or action, or a brief break in the dialogue. Okay. It could also mean a section of the scene with a specific emotional tone. Okay. Just to use a reference from last year, since that is the closest thing we have to really remembering, when excuse me, I yawned, I'm so sorry. When June's dad died and the ensemble sang the hymn Softly and Tenderly, and they talked about June's dad dying, and then she went into her monologue about her dad. You know, that's considered a beat. That's considered an emotional paragraph, and it gave Camry an opportunity to really compose herself and get into that emotional state. So that's an example of a specific emotional tone or an emotional paragraph. Keep in mind that some monologues include a beat. You would notice that in a lot of the ones that I provided, where it literally says beat, because that's where the director or the writer, excuse me, believe is the most natural place, or it's intentional for it to be there. There are some monologues where the beats are just implied, and like I said, you should be able to read the text and feel when those beats should occur. It's up to you to look at the script, read it out loud, and see kind of where your natural pauses are, and consider putting the beat there at the appropriate time. And the way to write beat on your script is say this was the end of my monologue or end of my sentence, and I knew that the next sentence required a beat. I would just take my pencil, or in my case, my really crappy right hand in a computer. Oh my gosh, Jacob could write better than that. And you're going to write beat right up there. Okay? And again, that just depends on if it's already written or not. Okay, so beat would be that action, that would be that pause, and then beat change is the transition moving from one tactic to another. Okay, so you would beat first, you would pause first, and then the beat change would cause you to segue into a new tactic in order to accomplish whatever objective your character wants at that time. Okay, guys, so just to give us a hands-on approach, I want you to take a look at this scenario, and then just sitting with the partners in front of you, let's have one of you, let's do groups of three, one of you being the cop, the other being the driver, and then the person in the middle sort of evaluating, providing a peer critique, and then of course switching out so everybody has an opportunity to play the different roles. But your scenario is that you, the driver, have just gotten pulled over for speeding. So how are you going to get out of the ticket? Your objective is you want the policeman to help you by not giving you a ticket. So take some time. Miss White, I'd give them about 10 or 15 minutes as a group to look at and role play and practice what tactics you would use to make that happen. And then I want to see some of the best ones. I want to see those next week when I come back. Okay guys, so the exit ticket is that you're going to define one of these following terms. Keep in mind that beat and beat change are pretty much simultaneous. And then your assessment for the day is I want you to take the monologue that you got either from Teams or from last class in person, and I want you to write where you think the beat or several beats, if your character in the monologue feels like it needs to have several, where and when is the best time to add those beats in so that you can add movement that makes sense and just make it a well-rounded performance. Okay? And then when I get back on Monday, we will talk about applying everything, adding the sentence structure, rehearsing it, making it perfect for your audience 2 class periods from now, and just knocking it out of the park this 6 weeks. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, I cannot wait to see you. Love you dearly. I'll talk to you soon.